boys and girls, the Eric Carle book I have today is called The Foolish Tortoise. Now let's talk about a few things before we read the book. The first thing I wanted to talk about is that word tortoise. Do you remember talking about a tortoise a couple months ago? Do you know what a tortoise is? Do you remember that story? The hare and the tortoise and the hare? Well, a tortoise is like a very big, slow turtle. So there we go. That's what a tortoise is. Now let's talk about the other word in that title, the foolish tortoise. Do you know about that word foolish? Let's talk about that. When I look up that word foolish in the dictionary, it says, foolish means lacking good sense or judgment, unwise. So let's talk about that. Lacking good sense or judgment. So kind of like not doing the right thing. Unwise, not very smart. So foolish means not very smart, doesn't make good choices, makes choices that are not good. This book today is illustrated by Eric Carle, like usual, but it is not written by him. That means someone else wrote this book. And you might notice the difference in the words. We'll talk about it when we look at it. All right, someone made this book into a video and added an instrument and turned it into a song. So let's listen.
A tortoise tired of being slow, impatient to get up and go, took off his large and heavy shell and left it lying where it fell. Hooray, he cried, now I've been freed, I'll see the world at double speed. The faster he was not express, and his protection was far less. So when he heard a hornet's drone, the tortoise crept beneath a stone. A hungry bird came swooping past, he looked so fierce and flew so fast. The tortoise hid behind some trees and felt quite weak behind the knees. I don't feel safe, there's too much risk, if I only could be more brisk. He headed for the riverbed, a fish swam up, the tortoise fled. Along his way our hero went, and almost had an accident. A snake with open jaws slid near, the tortoise backed away in fear. A hare, a hound, a horse raced by, so rapidly they seemed to fly. The tortoise gasped, sat Google-eyed, I'll never be that quick, he sighed. He wandered on, the sun rose high, I wish I had more shade, he cried. A sudden thunderstorm swept in and soaked the tortoise to the skin. The wind rose up and soon the breeze was bending branches in the trees. The tortoise shivered, now I'm cold, I wish I hadn't been so bold. I think I've lost the urge to roam, I think it's time that I went home. Without my shell I don't feel right, so when his shell came into sight, he climbed back in and said good night.
Why does a tortoise have a shell? I think you would say it's for protection, right? Yes. Protection from what? Things like predators, animals that want to get it, or maybe even the environment, right? And this tortoise was pretty foolish. Why was he so foolish? Because he wanted to try living without his shell. How'd that work out for him? Not too well. You could say that the decision to get rid of the shell was not wise. It was pretty foolish. I'm going to read you some of the words in this book. A hungry bird came swooping past. He looked so fierce and flew so fast. Did you notice something about those two sentences? Let me read the next part. The tortoise hid behind some trees and felt quite weak behind the knees. Are you noticing some rhyming words? Yes. I don't know if you noticed that. The whole book, it's filled with rhyming words. And Eric Carle doesn't usually do rhyming words. But do you remember me saying that someone else wrote this book? Yes. Richard Buckley is the author of this book. Maybe Richard Buckley likes to rhyme. I have not noticed Eric Carle rhyming yet. But that's why this book seemed and sounded differently, because Eric Carle did not come up with the words. You could tell he did the illustrations. He's the illustrator. Richard Buckley is the author. Did you know that that happens a lot of the time? A lot of the time, authors are not very good illustrators, and they will find an illustrator and talk to them about the pictures they want drawn for their book. So that's why you oftentimes see 2 names, or maybe even more than that, on a book. Normally, it's 2 different people. One person who draws the pictures, which is the illustrator, and another person that comes up with the words in the story, the author. Eric Carle, Mo Willems, and Dr. Seuss are all so extremely talented that they did both jobs. If I had to pick, I wonder if I would be a better author or a better illustrator. Well, you've kind of seen how I draw things, so my guess is I might be a better author than an illustrator. I guess I should practice more. All right, this is the end of the video, so thank you for learning with me, and I will see you next time. Goodbye!